it's time to, we're in the fourth quarter of the year. We're in the witching hour of 2018 now. That can only mean one thing, Justin. It's time to check in with Game of the Year Watch.
I didn't know they were going to do that.
Mark. Okay, right. Forget it. It's too late now. Just forget it. It's fine. Let's get right to it. Is God of War still the game of the year so far?
Yeah.
It's one of 2 games that we've given a 10 out of 10 so far.
God of War and Celeste.
Yes.
And Celeste as well, yeah. So God of War did not receive as much of an applause as I expected. Is that because everyone loves Spider-Man now?
Wow, what a turnaround. That's awesome.
Is it that everyone's waiting for Red Dead to make a real assessment?
Yeah.
And Octopath won us all over.
Nobody
clapped.
I liked Octopath. I don't. In your guys' minds, what's like the front runner as of right now?
For me, it's still God of War.
Yeah,
it was amazing. Like, you see gifs of moments of that game that look, scripted and like they're cutscenes, but that's just how the game is. It's that gorgeous, and the combat's that amazing and dynamic. Like, everything about that game feels so thought out, and the way that every ability that you have works in combat or out of combat. It has multiple sort of interesting contextual uses. I thought the storytelling was really good. I love everything about that game, and it might be one of my games of the generation. Not might be, it totally is.
Yeah, I think it's definitely up there for me. I think this is still my favorite game of the year that I played so far. Were you going to say something?
No.
Okay.
Well, I think God of War is a dad game, and I think you can relate to that.
Yeah, although I actually did think the dad parts of it were a little bit... I mean, Kratos is a bad dad. Like,
He's not a bad dad. He's a strict dad.
he's bad.
He's trying to raise him to be prepared for the real world, Justin.
the real world.
As they know it, as gods, yeah.
Sure. That part of it actually didn't resonate with me so much as a father.
I don't know, Tina. What do you think? What's your?
It's an excellent game. I think what I would highlight from God of War as being this like prestige title that came out this year is the storytelling, is the character dynamics and how they built that together. I mean, it's a gorgeous game too. So that for me is the primary reason why it would be the highlight of 2018. But I'm really waiting for Red Dead. I've seen 4 hours of the game, and it is. You believe things about Rockstar because they're so prestigious, and you've seen like their quality work in the past. But I was like, yeah, guys, like this whole Rockstar World thing. And then I saw 4 hours of it, and I genuinely was like, no, this Rockstar World thing. So I really want to wait until that comes out before I make, God of War versus Red Dead kind of statement. But I'm going to guess, for me personally, it's going to be Red Dead 2.
And you lean towards story experiences, right? Like
I
Breath
do.
of the Wild wouldn't like engross you as much as it did us because it didn't have the story stuff. And
For
this
sure.
looks like Red Dead is the perfect combo, right?
Yeah, it's got those story elements, and it kind of puts the onus on you to create the story through the world and the kind of decisions that you make. I just like how robust it seems, like the variety of things that you can do. Like you can, one of my favorite little details that we wrote about is that you can take an animal carcass and turn it into a hat.
Yeah.
It's just like, why not?
Cool.
How long does that take?
Well, you hunt the animal, so that's probably the longest thing, and then
Right.
you can skin it.
A little bit.
And then I think you take it to a store where they can turn it into a hat too.
See, that's
Or,
what
don't know,
I
just
worry
a
about
whole
that a
thing.
little bit in Rockstar games, where you just have to like do a bunch of chores, and they're not the fun ones.
You got it. You had to do your chores.
sounds-
You don't have to hunt.
The hunting parts, well, that sounds like the fun part.
I mean, like everything I hear about Red Dead 2 just sounds impossible, and I would never believe that anyone would be able to pull it off, except for like Rockstar is the one company on earth that I kind of maybe give the benefit of the doubt that I'm like, okay, this sounds like there's the path. You'll see like a dad and his sons build a house, and it'll get more and more built as the game progresses. I'm like, what? Like that? Like how can they go to that level of detail? But Rockstar is the company that they
Would pull it off.
Yeah, they would pull it off.
Sam, I know you're really enjoying Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
I think that's my game of the year right now. That's the game I've had the most fun with. It's definitely my game of the week. And
week. Yeah.
What really pulled me in is that it has exploration in it, which you guys probably hear me talk about all the time. And it's a really cool place to explore. It's a bunch of islands and like really, really pretty beaches, which just makes me want to go to a beach. And you don't have to play the game. You can just like go to the question marks just see what they are. And I always like that about Fallout and Skyrim, and just like the ability to just like say like, that's a cool thing. I just want to go look at it. And it rewards you for that. You get XP and you get to advance that way, but you don't have to do the other stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
I'm really loving Odyssey too. I like it way more than I expected to. I give every Assassin's Creed game a shot, and then I've been pretty disappointed with most of them except for Black Flag. That was the last one that I really, really loved. And then Odyssey, like, I can't put it down. I'm playing it every night. I'm really engrossed in the story and the mystery of the story. I think it's a lot better RPG than Origins was. I feel like I have more control over how I build my character and more interesting choices to make. It's absolutely on my Game of the Year.
Ubisoft,
I really like Cassandra too.
I hope Rockstar is as good, and I know they'll hopefully be as good or better as Ubisoft is building an open world right now, because it does so much with it. Like, you can always just pull out and be a bird. In a second. There's never loading. It's incredible, that alone. Or just if you just meditate and change the time, it just pans up to the sky and the sun goes up and down like this and everything changes in real time. Like, that world is just loaded up and ready to go. It's unbelievable.
If you haven't done this, you can press a button and your horse will like go to the waypoint you've set, and then you can just be a bird and fly around while you're still like.
I didn't know you could bird it up while on the horse.
In Red Dead, you can press and hold X, and it'll just go about the normal path when you're on the horse, and then go into cinematic view, and you can change all the angles.
And those cinematic views are incredible.
They're gorgeous, yeah. And this is at any point of time. You can do it in the middle of combat too, which is really
That's
impressive.
a good idea too.
I'm also playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey right now, really enjoying it. I think a lot of people are really surprised at the quality of that game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's part of the conversation for Game of the Year nominees in a couple months.
It's often been,
No, sure.
It's Assassin's Creed. We typically have 10 Game of the Year nominees at IGN, and I feel like several years in a row, Assassin's Creed's been like 11, right? Like, it just didn't quite eke in there. I'm quite a bit more confident it will this year. But
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I know Sam and I just played through Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Anyone else played that one?
Nope.
I like
A little bit at Gamescom.
Yeah.
There you go. We got some players out there. I like that one a lot. It's not quite on the same level as some of these other games we're talking about for me, but I enjoy
I'd
it.
recommend it to basically anyone too. Like, it's a good game to play. It feels good the whole time, but I don't think it's as good as the first Tomb Raider, but I think it's better than the second one.
Yeah.
I think it was also like padded by other big games, and
Yeah.
I got ignored in the shuffle.
Yeah, that's true. And then what about, I know it came out very early in the year, but what about Monster Hunter World? You realize that is Capcom's best-selling game of all time.
So weird.
Good for them.
It's crazy.
But I took issue with that in an earlier show. I won't go back into it. Listen to episode 437. No.
It's definitely going to be on people's personal top 10 lists.
We have
I think.
office mates that love it.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal, right? Like, it took this portion of The Office by storm, and that always means those people will vigorously fight for it.
And it was great to come out in
Just wasn't
January,
this
too,
panel.
without much other competition.
Yeah.
Very smart. It's pretty quirky. I respect the game. I've said on Scoop before that I don't really like games that do the same thing that every other game is doing, right? Like, blaze your own path and present us like a different version of like a third-person action adventure game, and I respect it for that. But I couldn't quite get my arms around it and find the loop that was enjoyable for me personally.
Yeah, I get you.
We didn't talk about Spider-Man though. I don't know if you're getting to
Yeah,
it.
I wanted to bring that up too. I think it seems like that's the game that like everyone out there is crazy about.
Yeah,
and we obviously we like it a lot too, but but it didn't get as high a score as some of these other games we're talking about. Yeah.
But it still was very great, right?
Yeah, it's great.
The 8.8 on our scale is great. Like, that's a really, really great game, and that's where my head is at on it.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. I had a hard time putting it down. Every moment that I was playing with it, I had fun. But then when the game was over and I was finished, like, now it's in my rearview mirror. It's not a game that I'm like thinking about or that stuck with me in the way that God of War did, for example.
Are we gonna see those block people? Is that the footage you pulled, Martin? You should have pulled the block people.
I think that's a really good point, Justin. Like, it doesn't really have a lasting impact. I mean, I'm only halfway through, so I can only speak to half of the game. But it feels really good to play, and it feels comfortable in a weird way because I'm able to like take a week off and then jump back in, and it's not the video gamey thing of like, wait, what are all the controls?
Yeah.
I feel like it just like naturally flows, and it's entertaining too.
It's
Good
the
characters.
moment-to-moment gameplay, and I also have to keep reminding myself that like we've had really bad Spider-Man games before, so it's like it wasn't like a sure thing that like, oh, of course the traversal is going to feel good and the combat's going to be really satisfying. Like, they could have gotten it really wrong.
So you're saying our standards are just too low?
I mean, like, I talked about this on Scoop a couple weeks ago, but like on the AAA, like best of the best game scale, like Spider-Man for me might be right down here, but when compared to every other game on Earth, like it's still one of the best of the year for sure.
And Sam, you finished it.
Yeah, I love it. I'm trying to think now, will I like it as much as the Batman Arkham games? And what's the best, superhero game ever? And I just have to think of it in a different class. I think the Arkham games are really about, solving puzzles and finding stuff. And I really wish that was in Spider-Man, but Spider-Man's not that type of character. So it's kind of a good combat game and a good beat 'em up and a good just as you're saying, just feels good to swing around. And I like all that. I think that's really neat. I just have to kind of reset. I don't play a lot of games like that.
Well, for the Batman games too, it kind of helped that Rocksteady set a tone for it, and it was kind of groundbreaking at the time. And so now we're a little bit more we've played that before. It's not as impressive on this third time around.
One thing that I loved and really appreciated about Spider-Man was its storytelling, and in some ways it's a very conventional sort of standard comic book Spider-Man story, but it takes risks with characters like Mary Jane that I think are actually really smart and natural. Usually in the comics, she's a model or an actress, but I think making her a reporter was smart and clever, and
making her playable too.
Yeah, and even some of the stuff Octavius in the game has an interesting arc, and Aunt May, just the things that they did with those characters, I thought was smart. They're familiar, but also put a new spin on them that doesn't feel artificial. I actually really like the story a lot.
There's been some people writing really interesting pieces about how Spider-Man seems naive in right now, and I think I liked that about Spider-Man, that Spider-Man can still solve a bunch of problems, and then also it kind of tackles one big problem where it's just this theme of homelessness, and a lot of it takes place in a homeless shelter. I was like, oh, that's actually really touching and interesting, and I just thought it was brave. It was really cool to play that.
I mean, Insomniac and their marketing really played up he's not a brand new Spider-Man. He's been Spider-Man for a long time. That was their message from the beginning. But it's this really interesting time in that character in Peter Parker's life, because he's not a veteran yet. They're oh, he's been Spider-Man for I think it's 8 years or 10 years, but that still means he's only 25 or 26, right?
Yeah.
He's still really young, but old enough that he has a history. And I think they really walked that line perfectly. Insomniac did.
We just had sort of our first discussions here in our weekly postmorts about our end-of-year best-of content, so we're definitely going to be ramping that up over the next coming weeks. Still some big games to go. Of course, Red Dead Redemption 2, Fallout 76 is in November. Of course, Smash Brothers is in December.
Yeah. Pokemon might be really good.
Pokemon is coming out in November.
Still Call of Duty.
It's Call of Duty as well.
Battlefield.
And Battlefield as well, yeah. So still some really big games.
We're missing something.
What's that?
We're missing something really big.
Well, we're not naming every single game.
It's just something I was really looking forward to.
That's coming out. But I do want to point out that I think our God of War review, written by Jonathan Dornbush, is our most read article of the year. So we'll see what happens when Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out. See if that can overtake that. I don't know. Sam, do you have your equipment handy?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sam has some very scientific equipment we're going to use to determine what you guys think is the game of the year so far.
Everyone, please turn your phones into airplane mode. We don't want it interfering with the sensitive equipment.
All right.
This is serious.
So he has some equipment here that's going to read. We're going to ask you to applaud for some of these notable games that we know are going to be in the running for Game of the Year. And Sam has some equipment he's going to use to measure your volume. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to so that you know what your options are. I'll recite the games first, and then we'll go back through them so you guys can pick what you want to applaud for.
So
We'll
no
measure by
applauding now.
No applauding now.
We're going to read off all
But the games we're talking about are Monster Hunter World, God of War, and Spider-Man. I think those are the main ones. Hold on.
I can't hear anything you're saying.
I know you can't. Just measure the applause. That's all you have to do. So, of those three games, what would be your pick for Game of the Year right now? Who wants to applaud for Monster Hunter World? Okay. You got your reading there?
You get the reading?
Okay. All right.
The baby also likes it.
Who would pick God of War? Okay, there's some discrepancy between those two readings, I can tell.
This is why it's important to have the calibrated equipment.
The math checks out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then finally, who would pick Spider-Man? It looks like it's going to be close.
Yeah, is that it?
That's it.
Oh, well, then God of War won.
God of War. Okay. Did God of War make it to distrubing?
Yeah, we went from loudly to distrubing. That's the actual scale I'm seeing here.
They've gone to plaid.
All right. Let's try and get distrubing to be a box quote on the Game of the Year edition of God of War. Distrubing GameScoop fans.
Just a top 10 dumbest things.
That's just a small taste of the discussion on this week's episode of GameScoop. For the full episode, head over to youtube.com/GameScoop and be sure to subscribe.